Welcome to this week's episode of Improv for the Podcast. On this episode, the first of 2024, we're going to discuss New Year's Eve, New Year's reflections, resolutions, goals, and beyond. Let's hit it. Welcome to Improv for the Podcast. On this week's episode, I'm your host, Michael E. Evans, and today, it is a very special episode. It is the first of 2024, which means, we've got to think about the new year. We got to think about the year behind us, let it go, and then we got to look ahead to the year in front of us. This is something that I've done the past few years. Is kind of sit down with a reflection packet. It's not my idea. I can't take credit. My wife introduced me to the practice. It is a lot of fun and really helpful. And I found that it's also helpful to take a moment to reflect and pause and plan ahead for your creative career as well in improv in particular, right? Related to your craft, related to your work. And this can apply not just to improv, but other things you pursue, other hobbies, other interests, to kind of think about what you've done in the past year, what you'd like to do in the year ahead. Because I know the term resolutions can be, not everybody likes them. I myself, I'm not sure if I like resolutions. More so I like reflection and then making conclusions or goals based off those reflections, right? Thinking about the year behind you, where you've been, and where you want to go in the year looking ahead. So in this episode, I'm going to share some of my own personal reflections and goals going into the next year. And then I'm going to share some general goals and reflections that you can have thinking about your craft, your art, and why that might be important, why it might be helpful in your work. I think as an improviser and any type of performer, it is important that you're able to reflect, right? Reflect about your work, and that way you can learn and get better. And make changes if you need to. So with that said, I'm going to start by sharing some of my own personal reflections and goals from the past year. And this is related to both improv, comedy, and my work at IFTP in particular. So some of the goals that I had were to post more videos. I wanted to post more content on social media, on Instagram. Another goal I had was to teach the sketch class. Another goal that I had was to perform in a new type of show. And the last goal that I had was join some sort of improv team. So I'm going to break those down. What was I successful in? What wasn't I successful in? Let's take a look. So I did post more videos as one of my goals. On Instagram, I just wanted to make silly little reels or TikToks or whatever. And this was something I did okay at. I think I had a good streak in kind of the middle of the year. And then things slowed down over the summer and then going into the fall. So if I were to give a percentage to this goal, I'd say maybe 50. I'd give myself a 60%, 55%. Things got busy, life happens, you get distracted, you're not thinking about videos and editing and all that sort of thing. So this is definitely one I maybe want to reform or make more specific going into the next year. Another goal that I had is teach the sketch class. That did happen. I did teach the sketch class in June and July 2023. We had a great show, great cast. It was fantastic. So that one was accomplished. I wrote perform in a new type of show. This is, again, another one I could have been more specific with. I didn't say what type of show, just a new type of show. I was leaving it pretty open. And I think for me, I don't know what that means. Is that an improv show? Is that a stand-up show? That's a good question, because I would say I did perform in both improv and stand-up shows in 2023. So I am thankful for that, but I don't know. Maybe I need to be more specific if this goal were to return. And the last thing I wrote was improv team, whether that was joining or forming a team. This is something that I thought about, but I never actually did. The fingers are pointed at me. I'm the only one I can blame for this one. So there it is. So those were my goals for the year. I'd say I accomplished not all of them. Well, depends on how you ask. But thinking about these goals, there's a way I could write them better that they might be more effective. And these are just my personal goals. These are just for me. They do not have to apply to you if you don't want to. And we'll get into some more general goals that you can apply to your work as well in a little bit. So thinking about my personal goals, post more videos. I think I could make this goal more of a SMART goal, if you know that term, right? It just means you're making something specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? So that goal is none of those things. I just said post more videos. I didn't say what kind, I didn't say when, I didn't say where, how often, how do I measure success, right? What's the criteria for success? So if I wanted to repeat this goal going into 2024, and I think I do, I'd say post more videos on a monthly basis. Maybe it's post 2 videos per month. Post 2 videos on Instagram per month. And that's my new goal for 2024. All right, so post 2 videos on Instagram per month. That's my new goal that I'm going to have. And we'll see how I do. Next is teach the sketch class. I'm going to say teach the sketch class 2 times in 2024. Both times I've done the sketch class so far, I've only been able to do it once. Just a matter of scheduling, getting married, life happens. So this year, I want to see if we can make it happen 2 times. That'd be fantastic. I said perform in a new type of show. Let's say perform in a long form show. I think that's good. Perform in a long form show. So those are the goals I'm going to stick with. I'm going to move myself down to 3 just because, maybe middle of the year I can add more. But this is me thinking about improv, thinking about my work in comedy and with IFTP of some things that I want to accomplish. I want to post more videos. I want to teach the sketch class. And we'll add one more. Develop a new podcast format. And let's say I want to do this by June 2024. I want to have a fresh format for episodes, maybe multiple guests, just to try out some new things, right? Keep things creatively fresh and interesting for listeners. Okay. So my 4 goals for 2024, kind of based off and evolving my goals for 2023, is post 2 videos on Instagram per month, teach the sketch class 2 times in 2024, perform in a long form show, and develop a new podcast format. Those are my goals. We'll see how they go. I'm curious to look back at them in a year from now. But I think they could be good. They could be helpful, right? And the format that I use for those goals is, again, called SMART goals. You can just Google it. There's a ton of articles. Odds are you've probably heard of it at your work or maybe in school. It's one of those things, right? Your goals need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Oh, boy. I don't want to get too corporate in this, but it helps me sometimes to get a little corporate. All right. So moving past all of that, those were my personal goals and reflections. I did some things well, but there was more I wanted to do, and I didn't accomplish it. And, I'm not going to be harsh on myself and be like, oh, you suck. You didn't accomplish your goals. Things happen. Life gets in the way. Maybe you accomplish other goals that you didn't originally set out with at the beginning of the year. That's okay. Be dynamic. Be flexible. These goals are just a guideline for something you might want to do in the year. They may not happen, and that's okay. Nobody's grading you, right? Allow room for flexibility, patience, and grace. So with that said, you're sitting here and you're like, all right, Michael, you told me about your goals. That's great. I don't really care about all that. What about you? What are some things you can think about as an improviser, as a performer, as a creative? I kind of have created 6 things that might be helpful to you or that you can think about in your work. So some general goals and reflections that you can have, let's say related to improv or any other craft, is to pick a focus or a technique for the year, for the month, for the week, whatever that is. Some examples in improv, right? Going into your weekly classes, maybe there's a specific thing you want to focus on in the larger scale of your work. Maybe you want to work on characters, initiations, accents, games, short form, long form, right? All these different things in a scene that you can do, all these different tools. And that's just a few examples, right? There are so many other things you could be specific to focus on. Object work. You'd say, hey, for the month of February in my IFTP classes, these are the specific things I'm going to focus on. Fantastic. Do it, right? So pick a focus or technique, and you can set that period of time, whatever that is for you. Characters for the month, initiations for the week, whatever that is. Next is pick an opportunity you want to work towards, right? Whether that's an improv or another creative endeavor. An example, right? Maybe you're new to IFTP and you want to work on being in a show in the year 2024, right? And maybe that's, making sure like you're going to classes, going to a jam if we have one, right? Taking opportunities to see performances, to learn from them, right? Just finding ways to work towards that performance. Maybe talking to Matt or whoever your teacher is and say, hey, this is something I'm interested in doing. What do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to be ready, right? What can you do to prepare yourself? So pick an opportunity you want to work towards. Next thing you can do related to your work, right? Pick something new that you want to try. Maybe it's a new type of class. If IFTP offers the musical improv class, Jamie's clown classes, dramatic improv, if the sketch class comes back, maybe you want to check it out. Push yourself, right? Do something new. That's how we get better, is when we push ourselves to try new things. All right, so that was number 3. Number 4, right? See more shows, right? Watching improv can be incredibly helpful to see how other folks do it, see their techniques, see what choices they do make, see what choices they don't make. So important, right? Learn improv by doing it, learn improv by watching it, learn improv by just consuming it however you can. And that's true for any art, right? It's not just true of improv, it's true of film and the fine arts, performance arts, right? Anything. You learn by doing, and you learn by learning and watching. All right. Another thing goes along with the theme of the last one. See more shows and read more books. Read more books. Watch documentaries. Watch movies. Read memoirs. I don't know. There's so many great things about improvisers. I've had a few episodes where I've hammered home these books, so I'm not going to repeat them. Go on the internet. Look in some of our past episodes, like the Improvisers Holiday Gift Guide episode or the Improv Yourself episode that I did a while back. Those are 2 that I would highly suggest listening to get some great book recommendations. Talk to your teachers. I know Liam knows some great books. Benjamin knows some great books. Ava knows some great books. Jamie knows some great books. Gavin knows some great books. Matthew Moore knows some great books. Talk to them. They got suggestions for you. And last thing I might suggest, explore different performance art. Maybe you're like, hey, I've been doing improv for a while. I want to push myself a little bit creatively. Go take an acting class. Go take a dance class. Go take a painting class. I don't know. Try pottery. Try stand-up, right? We live in Los Angeles, or maybe you don't. But wherever city, town, state you're located in, I assure you, there are more creative opportunities available than you realize. A lot of things that can be free and very affordable as well. I recently tried a cycling class. It's not a performance, but it's athletics. Never done that before. It was intense, but I highly recommend it. I had a lot of fun. My butt was sore, but I enjoyed the cycling class. It was fun to push myself in that way, right? It can feel good to push yourself, stretch yourself. So explore different performance art, just to see. Maybe you really love it. Maybe you don't. But at least you'll have the answer to that question about how you feel. So why can having goals or resolutions, why is that helpful, or why might it be important? Right? It can give you an aim or direction in your work, right? So when you're showing up to class every week, you have a personal objective as well as the objective that your teacher sets for the class, right? There are those 2 things, like, hey, tonight we're going to be doing long form. We're going to be focusing on this, all those different things. But you can also have that personal goal for yourself every time you go into a scene. All right, how am I initiating, or how am I helping my scene partner initiate, right? How am I yes-anding? What kind of characters am I going to bring to life tonight? Have that, right? It gives you an objective every time you step on stage. Push yourself to try new things, right? Goals can help you get out of your comfort zone. You're like, oh, if I'm going to accomplish this goal, I am going to need to try something new. That's great. That's fantastic. I know I mentioned this earlier, but I want to say it again, right? With these goals, if you reach the end of the year and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't meet any of these, I suck. That's okay. Maybe you take that time to think about, well, I didn't accomplish these things, but you know what? I actually accomplished these things instead, right? Just because you write it down at the beginning of the year, they might not always be as relevant by the end of the year, and that's okay, right? Your desires and wants can change. The goals that you want to accomplish, whether they're written down or not, can change, and that's okay. So like I said before, be flexible, have grace with yourself, right? Just like an improviser. you got to be flexible. You got to be malleable. So remember that with your goals or anything that you set in mind to accomplish in the year 2024. But in summary, I encourage you, take 10, 20, 30 minutes, sit down and think about your craft, think about your work. Come up with some goals or things you want to work towards. Write them down. Again, in summary, kind of the 6 things I suggested you focus on. Pick a focus or technique for the year. Pick an opportunity you want to work towards. Pick something new you want to try. See more shows. Read more books. Explore a different performance art. That's just a handful of the things you could think about. I think for all of us, if we want to grow in any craft, reflection and having things you're working towards is important. So important. Because if you don't know where you've been and what you've done, you can't know what you need to get better at and where you can grow. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this short, but hopefully, gave you something helpful in this episode of Improv for the Podcast. We'll be back next week with another incredible guest from the IFTP community. As always, thank you for listening. You can find us anywhere there's podcasts. And until then, Happy New Year. Happy improv reflection time. We'll see you next week. Bye. Improv for the Podcast was created by Matt Moore and Michael Lee Evans. Edited and produced by Michael Lee Evans. And finally, presented by Improv for the People. Interested in more IFTP? You can visit us at improvforthepeople.com or on our socials, such as Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Remember, new episodes are released weekly. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.